Hey guys, how's it going? First off, I just want to apologize for not uploading recently. I've been busy with real life stuff so far. 2021 has got me kind of busy, and I'm just gonna say this: I have a lot of videos in the works, but that's not what I'm here to talk about. Today, we're here to talk about how phones went to fun to boring. Let's get started. Alright, now cell phones have been a thing for a long time. If I had to take a guess, I would say since probably the early to mid 70s if I had to take a whack at it. But today we're primarily starting with the mid to late 2000s cell phones. We're going to be talking about the phones that were popular, the phones that were expensive, and the phones that were just cool in the mid to late 2000s. So yeah, let's get going. Alright, let's start off with the good one, the Blackberry. If you had this phone back in the day, you were either a businessman or somebody just important. This phone had everything, to texting, to email, to calendars, to, I don't know, everything that a business person might need in the late to mid 2000s, I guess. But from my perspective, I guess, I'd say every, important businessman or adult had one. If you had one of these, you were either a business person or working in finance, or maybe you were a lawyer. I'd say every important business person had this back in the day. They either had this or an iPhone. Alright, next phone up on the list is the Motorola Razor. Now this is another dope phone from I think this released in the early 2000s, I'm not sure. Either way, this is a cool phone. It'll look like it's from the future. Aesthetic wise, this phone is ahead of its time. With the glowing keyboard and the flip phone design, this phone is great. It's not even just a great phone. I would buy this just to have it. And let's just be honest, if you had this back in the day, you were fucking awesome if you had this phone. And let's not forget, this phone came in a wide variety of different colors and styles. I think Motorola basically renewed this phone as much as they could until they got into the smartphone era. Now, one thing I would like to make clear before I talk about this phone, I apologize immediately for not finding footage of this phone. And let me apologize again, I couldn't find any good footage for all of these phones because, most of the reviews are from 2008, 2009, so the quality is garbage. So I'd like to give a quick apology for that, and I guess on to the next phone. Now, before we get started with this phone, I just want to let you guys know I have a personal story with this phone, so I guess look forward to that. But the T-Mobile Sidekick. Now, this phone is an absolute classic. With this phone, it was evolutionary. I think it was the first one with the full-on keyboard. You could flip up the screen. It came with the camera. It was great. It honestly did a lot for phones that people don't even know about, like full-on keyboards, flip-up screens, stuff like that. This phone actually came with a D-pad, so it was kind of like a semi-game system in a way. What I'm saying is, if you had this phone back in the day, you were an absolute badass. Now, I guess onto my semi-personal story. You see, back when this came out, everybody either wanted a Sidekick or an iPhone. And of course, when the iPhone first came out, a lot of people couldn't afford it, so they got the Sidekick. Now, of course, with me being a kid at the time, everybody either wanted a Sidekick or an iPhone, and a lot of people got a Sidekick for Christmas. I wanted a Sidekick too, but I didn't get that. I had this. Yeah, I know it's absolute garbage, but it was the best I could do at the time, and I absolutely loved that phone. I think I had it till about, 2014, 2015, and my parents bought it for me back in, 2007, 2008. So I mean, yeah, it wasn't a Sidekick, but it was the best that I could do, and absolutely loved it. Now, how could I talk about phones from the mid to late 2000s and not talk about the first iPhone? This phone changed absolutely everything in the phone game. It had a touchscreen, it could play music. You guys don't know how big this was back in the day. Everybody was walking around with an iPod in one pocket and a phone in the other, or carrying a CD player and a phone in one pocket. This was absolutely huge. Although as big as the first iPhone was, it did change some things. With the iPhone, it came with the bright side and the bad side. You see, once the iPhone came out, then Android came out, then everything basically changed. Soon Motorola went from making fun phones like the Razor to making basic smartphones. Then Google went into the smartphone business, and then here we are today with just a bunch of smartphones. And yeah, don't get me wrong, they're technically great. You know, they could do everything, run YouTube, all the basic stuff. And I know this is gonna be wrong to say, but I feel like if the iPhone was as expensive as it was back in the day, I feel like we would have a lot more fun phones. You know, back in the day, there's this aura about the first iPhone. You know, like the 1% could get it, or the richest people could afford an iPhone. Or at least that's how it was like where I was from. But, you know, if the iPhone was a lot more expensive, think about where a Sidekick would be. Think about where the Motorola Razor could be. Well, the Motorola Razor has already been remade, so I guess we know where that's at. But still, you know what I'm saying. If the iPhone was a lot more expensive, we would still have fun, quirky phones. Or just imagine if the iPhone didn't sell well, how far would the iPod be right now? And it's not like I'm saying the current phones are bad. It's just I want a lot more fun phones, you know? Let's just say T-Mobile remade the Sidekick. What would that look like? What would it be? Or let's just say Blackberry was remade. Well, they kind of already remade the Blackberry, so I guess that doesn't really count either. But again, you know what I'm saying. We would still have all those weird devices like we had in the 2000s. But hey, I'm just throwing out ideas. It's not likely that T-Mobile's gonna make the Sidekick or Apple's gonna renew the iPod. None of this stuff is ever gonna happen. It's just ideas, I guess. But if you made it this far into the video, I'd really appreciate it if you could like and subscribe. Tell me what fun you had back in the day in the comments. And yeah, peace.
Soul making, sound shaking,